Okay. I hope this fixed the audio here. I've been talking for a minute, and sometimes there have been issues with GoToWebinar. Please, in the side panel, if you could, in the question section, let me know that you're hearing my audio because I definitely have been talking for a minute. Now working. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Julian. I'm going to move back the slide deck real quick, and we'll. Today's topic is on using Appulate as an MGA or carrier, and more specifically about eliminating data entry. So, for those of you who are familiar with Appulate, I'm sure you've heard our name come up a few times here and there, and maybe you're here because you're curious about what all we do, because no technology company does just one singular thing, and we're very adaptive to pretty much any workflow out there. But our whole premise is to try to eliminate any redundant keystrokes, automate the entire process, regardless of what your workflow is, and create a great standardized environment for agents to interact with you that's comfortable for them, not so much of a difficult learning curve, and using the technology that they currently have. So before we jump into all of that, some quick webinar logistics. You do have a side panel. A couple of you already recognized that. I appreciate the feedback a lot. We will have our everybody on here muted during this webinar. So if you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to put those into the questions section on that side panel. I will be watching that throughout the webinar. So if you do have any questions, I will answer your questions live. You don't have to wait till the very end. So feel free to put that in there. I'll also be recording this webinar, so this will get sent out to everybody who signed up, and we'll also put this on our YouTube channel. And at the end, we'll take some questions as well. All right, so let's jump into it. So who is Appulate? This is where we were. For those of you who are not familiar with Appulate, Appulate's been around for 15 years, actually a little over 15 years now. And we're a technology company that's been serving the industry, the insurance industry, the entirety of the time we've been in business. Our main focus has been really on the agent transaction with their markets, to make that transaction as easy as possible, as automated as possible, and as adaptive as possible with whatever technology either the agent is using or whatever technology you're using. So to kind of give you an idea, and we're going to go through a demonstration of how these workflows would be, but let's say you've got an agent who wants to send you an accord form. Instead of ingesting an accord form via email and then having somebody at your company take that and type in everything, we're going to eliminate all of that completely. Appulate has the most extensive library of accord forms in the industry, which allows us to take those accord forms immediately, convert them into industry standard XML, and bridge that into whatever system you may have. And that's really where we started about 15 years ago. And since then, that's been a huge product of ours. And I'm going to show you that process here in a little bit, but that's not the only one. So let's say you've got an online portal that an agent goes through and they key in information, and you don't typically see a bunch of accord forms. Well, we're still able to help the agent in that capacity as well. So these tools would be available to them at no cost whatsoever. And the agent is able to, from any agency management system out there, bridge that data from their management systems, from any accord form out there, into whatever system and process that you have and you'd like to take them through. Additionally, if you don't have an agency-facing portal or intake process, Appulate's developed arguably one of the best in the industry, and certainly the most used. So we're going to go into that as well, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can also get a copy of the slide deck, so I put this here so you can read this at your leisure, and I'll be happy to send this to you if you'd like. So real quick, I talked about, we're one of the most widely used, and I consider it the best platform for a number of reasons, which we'll get into once I'm able to show you around. But currently, we've got about 260,000 users in our system, if not more. This slide deck is about 6 months old, which should show you how quickly we grow. And that serves about 30,000 agencies in the country. That's about 80% of all retail agents. And not all agencies are the same, and they don't all operate the same. So they all use Appulate in different capacities. A lot of them use it every single day with all of the markets that they interact with in different capacities. A lot of agents go into our system looking for new markets to work with. So there's an incredible distribution opportunity in our platform, which is the last webinar I went over. If that's something that's interesting to you, let's definitely talk about that, because that's a huge piece of what we do, including about 80,000 of these agents in our system who actively use Appulate technology looking for new markets and are subscribed to an email list for that very specific reason. So those agents want to hear about new markets in our system. They want to know who's tech savvy. They want to know who gives them the ability to bridge data from point A to point B. Because Appulate is not just an internal tool, although it can be used that way. Our primary focus is, again, to try to give the agent the best experience possible so that when they're engaging with their carriers, MGAs, when they're utilizing the technology you have, it's not a huge learning curve every time they're dealing with you, and they don't have to rekey this data every single time, which is, of course, a huge time saver for them. As a result of that, we have about 17,000 submissions a month processing through our system, over $1 billion in premium, I'm sure, each year. I think it was either $1 billion or $2 billion in premium this past year. So a massive amount of submissions, a massive amount of opportunity in our system, again, to just interact with agents who are already on board with using current technology. They like the process and they want to be able to connect with you regardless of how your workflow is. And due to that, we do see a huge uptick in new market selection in our system, where agents do go in there at about 140%. Each month we see continuous new market selection, which does result in about a doubled, if not more, average submission count increase for our market partners. So this is a huge deal. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today is mostly about these workflows and how we can eliminate redundant keystrokes, how we can eliminate data entry altogether. So we have two primary workflows for this to happen, and no two companies are the same. So of course, what I like to do is spend a little bit of time with you to understand exactly what your workflow is, what kind of technology are you using, have we already integrated with that technology, which is very likely, how we could integrate with it, if not, how we can utilize, again, whatever technology or workflow you have to make it more efficient. So our two major workflows, the first one is A to X. That's the first one I'm going to show you today. This is just shorthand for Accord to XML. So we're just taking Accord data, either from an agency management system or Accord form, converting that into XML where you can use that however you'd like. You can dip that into a backend system, use it for quoting. You can take the data and the user to your agent-facing portal, instantly completing all of the data so they don't have to rekey it, and then they can walk through whatever's missing. And the second option here is A2X plus a custom portal that we would build alongside you, including a tremendous amount of automation through our system, which you'll also see today as well. So to kind of highlight the way this looks in a more visual way, and of course, we're going to take a look at this in real time. Again, this can come from any agency management system out there. We work with all of them, and every single Accord form for every single line of business in every single version. We have the largest library of both of those. And we can take that, convert it into industry standard Accord XML, send that to you so that you can use that in your system. And again, our custom portal just adds another element in that so that if you do want to upgrade how you're intaking that information, where you can showcase your appetite guide in real time, have a smart questionnaire that's dynamic, that adapts based on the information that you put in. If you want to offer instant indications for pricing, offer instant quotes, binding, appointment process, e-signature, all of that stuff we support in our system, all very standardized, already being used by agents, and already a big part of our industry. And of course, all of that can be taken out of our system via XML into a back-end policy admin system. Other available workflows, there's a lot. Like I said, we're very adaptive and there's a lot of things we can do. Some popular things that have come up are more hybrid solutions where we do a portion of the process in our system, and then we take the user outside of that for the binding process into your system. We integrate with various APIs in our system. We've worked with hundreds of carriers and MGAs that currently use Appulate in their workflow, as well as a lot of third-party vendors. So if you've been talking to folks out there who build some kind of policy admin system, or they have a custom portal, a lot of them will use Appulate technology as part of their process because it does work so effectively. We've been doing this so long. So a lot of folks don't build all of that from scratch. They'll build other parts and then use Appulate as a portion of their workflow. And just like those third-party vendors, carriers do the exact same thing. We can use this for email submissions. So if this was an internal tool you only wanted to use, that's fine too. We're able to support full rate quote bind in our system, premium financing and OCR, which I won't be going over today, but if you do want to see that, please let me know and we can certainly schedule a demo. OCR gives you the ability to pull in optically scan forms, faxed forms, and we can optically pull that information off of those forms, recognizing all of the characters in that, converting it the exact same way. So a lot of stuff that we have in our system that allows you to pull that data regardless of where your agent started. So let's take a quick look at this process. So I've got now an Accord form up. You should see this on your screen. We're going to go through this process. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through the A to X process. So the very simple process of moving data from this Accord form or agency management system directly into, let's say, your online portal. This gives the agent the ability to not have to rekey all this information because, of course, you're probably not the only market they're going to. So they get frustrated and they have to consider their time when submitting to you. So if we can take that element away, they're more likely to submit. And of course, this puts you above your competition if they do not offer something like this. So right away, they would download a print driver. So all they have to do is go to the printer, select Appulate as their print driver, hit print, and it's going to start the Appulate process. So it will bring up their login credentials, which have been saved. We'll hit send, and this will begin the process. So this is a fillable Accord form I'm using. This process is exactly the same for any scanned PDFs as well. A little bit of a longer process to read that, but not much. It will have us recognize which line of business we're trying to do, which of course is workers' comp in this case, and then we'll hit continue. Now, if this is a real world situation, they wouldn't have this testing page here. They would automatically have you selected as their market, which we'd be able to take them directly to. And once it validates that we've got the correct information, the right workflow, it's going to take us directly to that portal, instantly logging the agent in and filling out all this information, which it has done here before I could finish explaining what it's doing. Super cool. All of the stuff is really happening behind the scenes, of course, but for the agent, this is their experience. They hit a couple buttons right within their agency management system or hit print from their Accord form. They land in here, all of the data is here. Now they can go through your process of making sure that the data validation is happening, where they can ensure that the data is correct, and then of course fill out any kind of required or missing fields, and then complete that submission. So that's an extremely short demo because it's very quick and very simple, but that's how it would look if you wanted to take an agent directly to your system, or if you wanted to use this internally to ingest those Accord forms into a back-end system. Very, very simple. And I'll be happy to share that with anybody. If you would like to get with me at a certain point after this webinar, let's schedule some time. I can even set up a trial account for you because all of this has already been built, and we can have you go into the system, try it out, set up an account. You can see exactly the way that this looks like for your agents, experience that process. You can see the XML data. We're all about transparency here. So I'd love to let you guys test that out. So let's go ahead and now go through the Appulate process, which is a different process here, but similar. So the Appulate user interface, again, this is the one that's used by 80% of the insurance agents out there. They really do love our system, and I'm not just saying that, but we've got a tremendous amount of feedback. Our system is built around the agent experience instead of building it from the carrier down, which offers kind of a different level of service to these agents, which I can really appreciate. And when they upload this, they go directly into our system where they get this very clean looking area. Everything's very organized. They're able to interact with their markets in a completely different capacity than they're used to, which gives them the feeling of having a whole lot more control, and which they do. And then being able to navigate through a system that they're already comfortable and familiar with, so that they can complete your requirements that you may have in a very simple way. And so what I mean by that is, so I'll go up here and I'm going to select my fake MGA wholesaler type account here. And the first thing that we'll see is like right below this Westlake GA wholesaler, we can see the carriers that they're working with. Everything that you see, by the way, is completely customizable. So this is all based on the interaction that you want to have with this agent, what kind of visibility you want them to have. But I'm doing this in a way so you can kind of see the full bag of tools. But just keep that in mind that nothing in here is mandatory. Everything is very customizable, which is very cool. But the agent's experience overall will be the same. So right away, I see these extra carriers underneath their name, and this gives me the ability to select and unselect these carriers. And there's a couple reasons I may want to do that as an agent. First of all, I may have a direct appointment with AmTrust, for instance, and I don't necessarily need Westlake GA to do that. This allows me to have some form of communication with you so that I don't have to hop on the phone, let you know, or waste your time with you sending this and getting blocked. So this allows me to select and unselect. Additionally, it guides everything else that you're seeing. So it's going to guide the questions at the bottom. So down here, each one of these red numbers tells us how many questions we have left to answer. If I unselect a couple of these and I decide I only want you to submit to Encino, now I only have 12 questions I have to answer. And our questionnaire is built in such a way that it allows the agent to go through this, answering only what is required. They are not going to see anything extra. These questions can be custom questions that you put in here. These could be questions that are in supplemental forms that, by the way, we're completing in the background. So any kind of forms you may need completed, supplemental forms, accord forms, all of that is being automatically generated in the background, which you can download at any time. So that's a great form of a huge elimination of data entry right there. The other thing that we can do is we can have these letter indications pop up, which show the agent exactly if this is in line with your appetite guide. This is a huge part of our system that agents really like. So kind of a real world scenario, an agent, instead of calling you up saying, hey, do you take trucking risks in Texas? In this case, we can let them know, because obviously there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. You can say yes, but it may be that they need a certain amount of employees. It may not be long haul. It may be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're able to do a couple things simultaneously, let them know exactly what questions need to be answered. And based on the data that they've put in and the answers to those questions, we'll let them know if this has been D for decline, like it shows up here, A for accepted, or needs some sort of manual underwriting. So I'm going to go ahead and try to fix a few of these. It looks like I'm using an old submission here, so I've got to get this date caught up. So I'm going to select a new date. Now we've had an accepted submission for this carrier, but not quite yet for this MGA, which we of course need to submit to because I've already used this FEIN. So I need to change this really quickly just for our demo. And like you see, as soon as I make these changes, immediately turns to A. It changes everything that we're experiencing here. And now I can continue walking through this, answering any questions I need to answer. The other thing we see is an instant indication. So we do have public rate filings built into our system. So, in this case, we've got California work comp rating in here. So this can be very helpful information. Some of this is great, some of this is not so great. So if you do have rating information, we can build that in and make this as accurate as you'd like for it to be. And of course, we'll also put an indicator here that this is just an indication. We can do this, of course, all the way through a full quote. But let's go through here and enter this information. So again, today's all about eliminating data entry. So I'm sitting here as an agent completing this information. If anything is wrong, I answer something wrong, it's going to tell me right away. So I'm not having to go back and forth with you. So you're not having to go back and forth with these agents. We can collect every single thing that you need. So we're not having to, again, go back and forth and try to look for extra information. And we're putting this burden, if you will, on the agent, but we're doing it in such a way that doesn't take a lot of time. We're asking them very straightforward questions, not a lot of extra stuff, and we can get exactly the information we need specific to this insured profile for a quote. So let me finish putting a couple pieces of data in here and finish out the requirements for this particular MGA. And now we're all set. So now every question has been answered. The only thing we have left to upload are loss runs. So again, anything in the background as far as any kind of forms, supplemental forms are automatically being completed. I'll show you a copy of that so you can actually see that here. So everything is being completed in the background. All of these forms work in real time with one another. So you're not ever having to go in and key anything in twice. As long as this data is in here one time, it works across everything. So if I were to change 18 employees to 15 employees, for instance, I can make that change and I should see that reflected everywhere else. So let me move back here. Yep, and we've got 15 employees. So this will happen on all forms. So that right away is a huge deal. So loss history, any other kind of forms, let's say a resume or bio on an owner or something like that you require, we can build in those requirements as well so that these agents will upload this information. If they had a pile of forms with their accord forms and they've got loss runs, supplementals, and all that, we don't pull the data off those loss runs and supplementals unless we custom build that for you. But it is doing this off of the accord forms. We can parse those forms so we can split up everything, allow the user to tag those appropriately so they land in the right spots, and then we can ask them the appropriate questions about it. But to kind of recap here, so now I've completed everything. So I've got a nice big green A. I'm ready to submit, which I can now submit, and I can go through whatever your submission process may be. But I've not had to key anything in twice. Everything is bridged over directly from my system or the accord form. I've landed in here, know exactly what you need from me. I know exactly if this meets your criteria, and now I'm done. So I can now submit to you. I can select the various carriers underneath your name. I can get instant quotes if I'd like. So in this case with Encino, I think we've connected via API in some way. So we can get an instant proposal, which can be downloaded, shared with the insured, and we're ready to bind. We can either complete that binding process with an Appulate, collecting signatures, make sure that they have completed your appointment process, which we can also automate in the system. And we can complete the binding process in here, or we can take them outside of Appulate into a binding process elsewhere. So that's a huge piece of this. Obviously, there's no redundant keystrokes here. Everything's been done. And now you've got this data, most importantly. So once you have this XML data, this can be used in any number of ways that's productive for you, and you don't have to key in anything. So that's really it. So there's a lot of tools in here, and I would love to get on the phone with you in particular, and we can talk through this more specifically for your workflow. I can set up a demo specifically for that. We can test out any other kind of accord forms you may have and would like to test. And yeah, so that's that. So let me go ahead and move back to my slide deck. So here we go. So real quick, of course, I'm going to be checking our questions right now. So if you do have any questions, we can go through that. I've had a question pop up here. What percentage of the 30,000 agencies are personal versus commercial insurance focused? That's actually a great question, because this is what I'm about to get into right now, is trying to understand these agents. What are they actually doing? What are they submitting? What are they interested in? This is a huge part of what we do. I couldn't make the claim that we build our system around agents if we didn't spend a lot of time studying what they do, both from internally and with our data, how they use our system, but also their reaction to these questions in general. So I'd send out a survey each year, annually, try to understand our huge network of agents. We offer them a cool little prize if they complete it, and we get a huge response, which is really great. I think it gives us a good amount of data to understand these agents. So to answer your question in particular, how many are personal versus commercial? We asked that question. Agents said that they're about 60% commercial and 40% personal. So pretty decent split there. Our system has been built around more of the commercial lines. This is where we've been more focused. There are other companies out there like Vertafore, for instance, who they do similar things like this, but they've been more focused on the personal line side of things. No right or wrong to any of that. This is just where we've been focused. But I'm talking about kind of where we started. Of course, we've been around for so long now. We've seen everything from major commercial lines down to personal lines and even pet insurance. So we've really hit pretty much everything out there. But there are definitely some great places for you to be. So I'll show you where you can see what kind of lines we have in our system, what kind of carriers and MGAs are also available in our system as well. So you can kind of see how we've serviced that. But to kind of go back into understanding these agents, this screen I have up here, the question was, what are you looking for from your carrier or MGA? A very simple question with huge results. So right off the bat, I'd say these top 10, about 5 of these are things that Appulate solves right away. So for instance, fast quote turnaround, ability to quote online, instant quotes, multiple offers and quotes, we support that, automated process. And I would even suggest that binding authority, giving them some sort of control within our system, maybe what they're looking for there, and we certainly support that. We have no impact on your rates, your quotes, or how your product is. So we want to make sure that you guys are offering a good product in your system. And if we can offer agents a good product alongside great technology, there's no reason this agent is not going to want to submit. And your product does help us a lot. So we do look at our relationships with our customers like a partnership. Typically, our contracts are 3 to 5 years long, and we want to make sure through the entirety of that contract we're supporting each other. And the way that we do that is by ensuring that we're a good fit. And this is why I bring up things like this, just for sake of transparency. So for instance, we actually can nail this down to classes specifically. So you asked, what is this commercial versus personal? Well, let's break this completely down. The next slide, I'll actually go into lines of business as well. But for class codes here, this is a huge question that we get. And it's a very interesting piece of data, because on the left-hand side, we have top classes that agents are currently writing. And then on the right-hand side, we have top classes you would like to write more of. So one of the things we do at Appulate is we want to make sure agents are educated not only about how to use our system, but the products that you're offering. And the best way we can do that is by being very transparent about what these agents are looking for. This helps us guide marketing information. So the 80,000 agents that are subscribed to hear about new markets in our system, we want to make sure that they're getting good information, and we're targeting people in a way that gets them excited about it. So if you've got a good product for transportation, for instance, it's not the top one that they're writing currently. It's in the top 10, but it's number 1 in the stuff they want to write more of. So if you've got a great workers' comp program, and we want to say, hey, now you've got Appulate technology, you can access this carrier MGA in a matter of seconds. And by the way, they've got a fantastic transportation program that allows you to do long haul trucking in Texas. Agents are going to get excited about that. They're going to use our system. They're going to submit to you and at least investigate you in our system, which they can do in a matter of seconds. So lines of business, this is actually very interesting, because on previous screens, it kind of dropped off after the first 10 to 15 answers. But here we have a huge spread. So we've had a lot of success with very niche lines in our system. It seems like that's been very trendy right now, to try to push those into our system, find pockets where there may not be a carrier or MGA that is offering a particular product in our system, putting that product in our system in a very automated way, and then educating those agents that this is available. This has a huge impact on what we do. But right away, you can kind of see, and of course, I'll be happy to share this with anybody. You can see what our top lines of business are. This is, by the way, not top lines that Appulate is supporting, for instance. So this is not what we're doing. Ours is completely based on our customers. So if you come and say, hey, we want to offer excess liability, then we're going to build the product for that. This is all based on what people currently write on a regular basis. Also, I say this saves a lot of time. This is a great slide. This is actually something we usually show our agents, but I think it has a big impact on the topic today, which is just time savings. I have a separate calculator built specifically for MJs and carriers. It's a lot more complicated than this, because there's a lot of factors to consider with both incoming and outgoing data, different types of workflows, a number of different things. But from the agent's perspective, in just data entry alone, this is what we have found is the amount of time and money saved on these submissions. So right away, this is based on both what the agents have told us and, of course, our data internally. Average submission per month is about 40 per agent, which if we combine that with time saved per agent, which on the agent side, of course, is just data entry, it tends to be about 37 minutes per submission. That's a great number, but it's also conservative. So we had a lot of results to that question, everything from 10 to 15 minutes per submission on up to hours and even days. It just really depends on how that agent is interacting with their market. But conservatively, the average there was about 37 minutes, translates to about 25 hours per month total. And using the average wage of about $50,000 for CSR and agent ends up being about $7,000 of time saved each month, because time is money. So that's how we calculated that. So, I mentioned we put a lot of resources into outreach. So that's a huge part of what we do. We want to make sure that we're really engaging with these agents. And because of that, we've seen a huge increase. So in about 2016, I spearheaded an effort to try to get more information out to our agents, increase our marketing efforts in conjunction with our partners. And since then, we've seen a huge increase. So instead of us trying to just push our technology and tell everybody how awesome it is, we put that alongside with our partners, try to promote their products and things both within our system and through email marketing, webinars, and a number of other things. And since then, everything has just increased, not just with logins, but usage and markets being selected by agents, which is the chart on the left-hand side. And we do this a number of different ways. Like I mentioned, email blasts. We also host landing pages. We have a market directory, which I'll show you here in a second. We have a number of user groups of agents. So this is really important. If you have a product you're bringing on board with, in our system, or you've got a process where we implement Appulate as part of that, we want to get feedback. So we do have pilot groups we can take agents through and get feedback on that, make sure that it's being well received. We do a number of webinars, personal outreach, and we even have a premium version of Appulate, because Appulate is free for agents to use, but we do have a number of agents that pay for additional features in our system, so a lot of commitment in there. And of course, like everyone, we try to do the whole blog, social media, YouTube. We have online training and training on demand as well. So how we can get started, let's certainly schedule a call. Let's talk about the technology that you have going on, what your workflow is, what your goals are. We can help develop a scope of work. Then we can start talking about pricing. I can put a proposal together. You'll be excited about that. If you've been in talks with third-party vendors, which I strongly suggest, we definitely do something very unique, but our pricing is also great. I mean, it's all based specifically on the line of business we're building, the actual projects. Most of our system is standardized. We've already built it. It's a matter of just getting it licensed. So the cost can be pretty palatable for all types of budgets, which is great. We still can get a lot done in that. And then our implementation, which is done after, is also very quick, because although we do support a huge amount of customization, most of this stuff, including like our library of Accord forms, has already been completed. And so, a lot of times our average implementation can really be isolated down to about 60 to 90 days worth of work, including testing for even a couple of different lines of business and a full customizable portal, which is great. I mentioned I wanted to share a market directory with you, so let's do that real quick. If you go to our website, you can get a lot of really great information on here. You can learn about all the different features for both carriers and MGAs, all the different types of things that we do. And let me go to our market. Let me do this. We go over to our agents. We actually just had a brand new website developed here, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go to our markets. Oh, hang on a second. You go to appulate.com. We're just going to make this easier, /market-directory. So if you want to go right to that URL, you can come right to this page, which is great. This will show all different types of lines of business that we support in Appulate, which is all of them. But you can type in something specifically. We were doing workers' comp today, so I can go into workers' comp, and I can see the hundreds of different carriers and MGAs that use Appulate in various capacities. And also over here, we'll see that some say upgrade and some say standard. Anything that says standard is actually a partner of Appulate's. WebLink is a tool that we still allow, like if you're an MGA, for instance, and you have 10 different carriers and they're not working with Appulate, we can actually still map out that data to their portal, bridging that data across so that you don't have to, which is super cool. And another point I wanted to hit today as far as data entry. So moving data from our system even to your carriers, if you're an MGA, we're able to host that as well and make that process as streamlined as possible. But you'll be able to kind of see here who we're working with, who we're not working with, who we've already built that for and who we haven't. Any kind of stuff we need to build for you with your carriers, we're able to do that. So it doesn't matter who it is, even if it's not on this list. But this should give you a great idea of who we're working with and how this has been supported. So that was a question that came up. Let me just pull my slide deck back up here real quick, and we'll go back into a section here. We can do some questions, but here's my information. So if you do want to schedule some time with me directly, you're more than welcome to use this link. I'll send an email out to everybody on here as well, so you'll have that. You can schedule time directly on my calendar. Here's my phone number and extension and email address if you would like to send me an email, and we can talk about some of these things. But I will open this up now to questions. So the remainder of this time will go directly to questions. So let me check my side panel here. Feel free to ask those. So how does the IPFS integration work? What a great question. Yeah, so we are integrated with IPFS, which is Imperial Premium Financing Solutions, a great company that has partnered with Appulate to offer premium financing within the workflow. So if you do want to offer premium financing to your agents, that entire process is now automated and built into Appulate, very accessible and easy to use, and it will pop up whenever it's appropriate. So typically we use that during the binding process when it's in Appulate. So an agent goes into the system, decides they want to go with this quote, bind it right within Appulate, sign the forms, and then they can be introduced to premium financing, which they can navigate right within the system. And so I'd be happy to, actually, I think we've got even a YouTube video about that. So if you go to YouTube and type in Appulate, you can actually see what that looks like. But if not, we can schedule some time and I can show that to you. Let's see if we've got some more questions here. So somebody wanted to see that web link. So let's take a look at that real quick. Great question. So if I'll go back into this the same way, although it'll probably take me into the exact same submission I was working on. But let's say we're doing this on an MGA site. So I'll play the role of an MGA now. So we'll go into the system. Let's say that accord form was something an agent emailed to me, and now I want to go into Appulate and I want to send this out to various carriers that are not working with Appulate. No problem. So I'm going to use AmTrust, who's, by the way, they're partnered with us, but they let me use their portal for this demo, which is really great. But they've got an online portal outside of Appulate. And we've built what we call WebLink, which is what I'm showing you now, which allows us to create a data bridge, again, via browser plugin that kind of operates like if you're filling out a form online, you start typing your name, it auto fills out everything. We use that same kind of technology to bridge data right from within our system over to that portal. So now I'm not even touching the computer, by the way. It should log me in right away. So let's see if it does. Fantastic. I love that. Okay, cool. So now I'm in the AmTrust portal. It's automatically logged me in and is going to take me directly into a new account and autocomplete. So I'm definitely not typing that fast. So it has now completed everything in here, and now I can navigate directly through this portal like I normally would, but not having to key anything in. So this is huge. Our MGAs find a big value in this. So that's one of the most requested tools that we build. And we've even had agents who license this as well, because this is such a helpful tool and it's very cost effective to implement. But yeah, we're able to take the data, which we already have, and then bridge that out to any carrier portal. So that's a great tool. All right, any other questions on here? I saw we had a couple come in, but let me give you guys a couple minutes if you do have any questions. Question, would you be able to see this? Yes, so we're going to, this is all being recorded, and then we'll put this on YouTube, so you will be able to see it there, and I'll send a link out after this so that you guys can check that out. Awesome. Yeah, okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions here, so I do want to be mindful of your time. I really appreciate everybody joining today. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I think a 15-minute conversation could go a long way. And by the way, everybody in this tech industry, we're very friendly with each other. So I know a lot of really great folks that if something about this isn't quite right, or you're wanting to do something a little bit different, or kind of curious about what type of policy admin systems you could utilize that work alongside this, we can have those kind of conversations. And if that means we refer you to somebody else who may be using Appulate technology as part of their workflow, or somebody that may better suit your needs, I'm more than happy to do that. The goal here is let's try to increase the automation in this industry and make things a lot easier for these agents, which I think we definitely do. let's find a way that we can work together with that. But I really appreciate your time, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend, and hopefully we'll be talking soon. Bye now.